Protocols, testing, and next steps. I'm Dr. Leslie Korn. Welcome to the final module of Integrative Medicine for Mental Health. I'd like to walk you through some of the protocols. We've explored many modules and many interventions in what I call the Brainbow Blueprint. Now I'd like you to see how they all fit together. Let's look first at integrative treatment for ADHD. What you'll see here is that I've organized this table along assessment, digestion, culinary medicine, nutritional medicine, herbs, detoxification, yoga and exercises, and somatics. And so this really pulls together for you some of the principles I highlighted in each of the earlier modules. So you see how it all will work together when you're working with someone with ADHD or any other kind of presenting symptom. Keep in mind the concept of bioindividuality, that this is really a guideline, it's a map, it's a starting point to begin to think about some principles about how this all works together. So here in assessment of ADHD, which is really about focus and attention, we think about sedentism, is the child or adult getting enough activity? Are we seeing symptoms of stress or even complex trauma? That is the diagnosis even correct? What is their learning style? We have such a focus in our school system on one type of learning style. We often know that children with ADHD and adults are much more kinesthetic learners, and there may be a mismatch to their environment. Are there allergies and sensitivities? Circadian rhythm is often disrupted in ADHD, and also hypoglycemia, very important to balance out blood sugar. So those are the basics of the assessment I want to walk through. What do we do for digestion? Stabilize hypoglycemia, enhance the microbiome, identify any digestive problems ranging from the start, chewing, on through the gut or into elimination. Our principles of culinary medicine suggest that we eliminate the refined foods, that children and adults with ADHD are often very sensitive to the stimulant foods, such as sugar, the inflammatory foods of refined flours. They tend to do well on protein and fats, fish oil, B-complex, free amino acids, and L-tyrosine, which supports dopamine function. They'll do well with rhodiola tea early in the day because that helps focus. But for anxiety, I like VHP, valerian hops, and passion flower. Research suggests that vetiver oil and cedarwood oil are very helpful when they're inhaled. These are essential oils, not topical or edible. Detoxification, always look for heavy metals where you see any kind of learning challenges. Restore a leaky gut with mucilaginous foods and herbs. And of course, magnesium sulfate baths at night are very deeply relaxing. I find that people with this diagnosis are kinesthetic learners and often do well with physical activity. And this I have found combining martial arts or fencing, something that involves movement with discipline and construction of improved body boundaries and body image, is very effective for this type of individual. Certainly breathing and body work, Watsu. I've worked with a lot of children teaching them how to cook and measure and prepare food. It not only engages the self-care behavior, but it also teaches patience and measuring and then having a really great reward at the end. Remember my chocolate almond joy recipe for these children. Have them breathe through the right nostril. It will activate the left brain, especially when they need to focus and concentrate for school and tests. And somatics and body approaches, they do well with rocking, blue light blocking glasses at night. And also we find that these children and adults are very sensitive to screen time. So reduce screen time, keep it limited. Integrative treatment for cognitive function, attention, and focus. This flows out of ADHD, and you'll find some similar interventions here, but here I'm moving more towards cognitive performance, cognitive function, and prevention of cognitive decline and dementia. In the assessment process, I want to look at the role of blood flow into the brain, synapse communication, lubrication, age-based analysis. Are you middle-aged and experience some mild cognitive decline, or are you looking at later stage? Or are you working with someone who just wants to enhance their cognitive focus and you want to help them stay off pharmaceuticals to do that? Also look at things that you might not consider. Gum inflammation is often associated with whole body inflammation, which can affect cognitive decline. It points to the relationship between heart function and cognitive function, and often the mediating pathway you can observe this in is chronic periodontal problems. For digestion, certainly you want to slow the uptake of glucose to give you a slow, steady feed of energy for the brain. Enhance your EFAs, your essential fatty acids, and enhance your ability to emulsify them by, remember those bitter greens we talked about in culinary medicine. Always enhance gut function. We know that leaky gut can have problems, particularly gluten sensitivity, causing problems in neurological function in the brain. People do well with higher proteins, good quality fats, complex carbs. Eggs are our brain and cognitive function protein. Spinach, because of lutein, so good for the eyes and the brain. Green tea powder. Yes, it's great to drink a cup of green tea every day, but to really get the benefits, you need to get a concentrated powder and a high dosage every day. Chocolate, no one's going to argue with chocolate, and coffee enhances dopamine and focus, and it's also a mild antidepressant. Fish oil, krill oil, gamma-linoleic acid. We know from research you've got to have a minimum of 2,000 grams a day. I would increase it to 5,000 milligrams a day. Lithium orotate, I think that's our primary go-to nutrient mineral for cognitive function and supporting neurogenesis, preventing cognitive decline, and as you'll see, we've talked about it for a whole range of mental health function. Taurine has been shown, not only do we use it to reduce high blood pressure, but it's an amino acid shown to support neurogenesis, the development of more neurons. Lutein has been found to enhance memory. Among the herbs, huperzine, ginkgo enhances blood flow into the brain, vinpocetine, and inhaling melissa. We use inhaled melissa particularly to enhance cognitive function and decrease agitation associated with later stage cognitive decline. Hydrotherapy, here's where hot and cold hydrotherapy, we alternate hot and cold. This is the principle of enhancing blood circulation. So stimulate your blood flow all throughout your body. It'll enhance it in the brain. Coffee enemas, liver flush, and we know sleep is one of the main forms of detoxification and the role of lymphatics in the brain. We know that aerobic exercise, in particular high-intensity aerobics, is very beneficial for cognitive function. One needn't do it more than 10 to 15 minutes a day to get that benefit. I like balancing, using the Bosu ball. Balancing engages different parts of the brain and will create new neuronal connections. Pranayama, brain training, neurofeedback, Lumosity is a game that I like very much for cognitive enhancement. Cranial sacral therapy, grounding treatments, working with the feet and the hands in particular. You can't go wrong with any form of somatics and enhancing blood flow and circulation. Integrative treatment for anxiety. For assessment, I like the Nijmegen scale. This is where we can put together in one place symptoms of hyperventilation syndrome, sighing, neck tension, chest pain. It's very illuminating for our clients who have both sighing, disordered breathing, and anxiety. We know that fermented foods support GABA production, which are our anti-anxiolytic neurotransmitters. So focus on the fermented foods to support gut function. And vinegars, meats, bone broths, oatmeal, celery, these are all anxiolytic foods. Reduce the dietary stressors, caffeine and sugar. And for nutritional support, enhance the GABA neurotransmitters with Lactium, that brand that I like called De-Stress. B-complex are probably where you should start. A niacin will reduce anxiety, particularly where you've got anxiety and alcohol and drug recovery. Magnesium, I think, is your preeminent mineral for anti-anxiety. In herbs, kava supports GABA, valerian hops and passion flower, skullcap where you've got anxious depression, and in a pinch, a half a cup of dark beer. It's rich in hops. And CBD oil is very good for anxiety as well. I like the fiber flush for the colon in anxiety, and also skin brushing is to be done morning, noon, and night to reduce anxiety, enhance body imagery, body self-image and concept. Breath retraining, recall our yoga exercises, the scalene stretch, the ha breath, making sound, toning, opening up the diaphragm, doing the wood chopper, anything that's going to engage voice and sound and release the diaphragm is going to be beneficial for the breath and for anxiety. And in body dysmorphia associated with anxiety, I like to use anaerobic exercise, using hand weights and the mirror exposure exercise. In anxiety, I like light touch for anxiety, rocking. You don't need to stimulate too much. This is a very gentle touch, someone who understands how to help someone relax. Integrative treatment for depression. There are so many factors contributing to depression. One wants to assess leaky gut, inflammatory process. We know certainly that depression follows on chronic stress. So exploring a history of ACEs, PTSD. I want to look at neurotransmitter function. Are we getting enough protein, amino acids to support chemicals in the brain? Oxidation, or are people getting enough antioxidants? Have they been exposed to lots of pollution or heavy metals? I want to support mitochondrial function, for example, with CoQ10. And is there co-occurring traumatic brain injury, PTSD, and ACEs? Assess for GERD. Often we know with depression and stress comes poor digestion, and therefore with poor digestion, people aren't getting the nutrients they need. Do they have hypoactive elimination? Is there a lot of lethargy in the peristaltic function? Green papaya salad, rich in papain, chocolate, raw butter, raw soaked almonds, fermented foods. Again, we go back to spinach. Remember, spinach is best eaten slightly cooked, not raw. And of course, figs. And you can certainly refer to the nutritional therapies table that I gave you, where we look at amino acids and herbs and nutrients and entheogens. This can be your go-to reference guide. I like to begin with amino acids and adrenal support, because adrenal support supports the stress that always underlies depression. St. John's wort, we've got good evidence for mild to moderate depression response to St. John's wort. Rhodiola to boost mood. Coffee is a mild dopamine boost as well. Liver flushes. We know that depression and anger, irritability all go together, often associated with the liver. Depression and alcoholism go together, so flush out that liver. Maybe you might even get an assessment for fatty liver disease, in which case phosphatidylcholine is a good approach there. Coffee enemas are going to help activate phase 2 detoxification in the liver. In depression, we know that aerobic exercise is essential. Start getting people moving again, if it's in the water, if it's on land, if it's on horse, however they move, they've got to move and start activating those endogenous chemicals. Yoga and right nostril pranayama. I find in depression, stimulating pressure, deep reflexology, light abdominal work, rocking, and we know that hyperbaric oxygen therapy, where there's depression associated with TBI and PTSD, and also there are innovations in the use of ketamine therapy with chronic resistant depression. It's being practiced with physicians and psychiatrists now. Integrative treatment for seasonal affective disorder. The Seasonal Pattern Assessment Questionnaire regulates circadian rhythm. SAD is a function of circadian rhythm dysfunction that occurs generally starting around November and goes until the light comes back in early April. Use chrononutrition. I write about this extensively in my clinical textbook, Nutrition Essentials for Mental Health. It's rooted often in carbohydrate metabolism. The craving for refined carbs and sugar should be replaced with complex carbohydrates. Improve healthy fat use, protein use. We know that whey protein can be very helpful. It's high in tryptophan, converts to serotonin, improves mood. Methylcobalamin, vitamin B12, melatonin, and 5-HTP or tryptophan at night can be nutritional interventions for SAD. And again, the herbs, St. John's wort, green tea, rhodiola, the detoxification strategies. SAD, people do well with interval training in the morning. We want to stimulate, and usually people with SAD are phase delayed, they're sleeping in, and so we want to nudge that where they come back into regulation of their clocks. So exercise earlier in the day, certainly by noon, bright light therapy earlier in the day. They do very well with cranial sacral therapy, visceral manipulation. You can make a lot of progress with SAD with that integrative approach. Integrative treatment for PTSD. During the assessment process, I want to understand what stage the individual may be in. Are they still challenged with self-care behaviors? Are they in self-harming? Are they self-medicating? Or are we going to focus on self-care before we look at processing and memory work? Or then the third stage, what I call the wounded healer, where one is now in the process of transcending and transmuting the traumatic events and moving on into a stage where they often will become a healer themselves or certainly are healing themselves. So understanding the stage someone is at will help you identify some of the basics of an integrative approach. Certainly, if we're going to decrease dissociation, we want to enhance mindful eating, transform self-medication behaviors, and ease the digestive process. Oftentimes, people coming out of trauma associated with substance abuse are not digesting well. They're going to do well with broths and very simple foods, cooked foods, porridges, legumes that they can digest well. Keep it simple for them. Smoothies whereby they may take a good nutrient formula that's in powder form, liquid fish oils. Help make them successful by keeping it simple as you suggest these changes. People with trauma and chronic stress need protein, they need sea salt. Here's where I teach the colors of the rainbow, all the colors of the rainbow, so that people can begin to learn the benefits of all of these foods. This is where collagen broths and anti-inflammatory spices come in, golden milk, for example. They will benefit with glandular use, using the liver, glandulars, brain, hypothalamus for chronic stress. B-complex and taurine. And then go for the natural anxiolytic herbs, the adaptogens like licorice to support the capacity to adapt to stress. And citrus-based aromatherapy is a great mood booster. Open up a lemon, open up a lime, or get some essential oils. Boil up some cinnamon bark and just be surrounded by wonderful smells that lift the mood and decrease stress. Decreased association with skin brushing, hydrotherapies, both warm and cold packs, and of course hyperbaric oxygen therapy can be very helpful, particularly where there's been brain damage. Yoga and exercise. Here's where early stage hard aerobic exercise comes in during the self-care stage. I wouldn't necessarily move towards meditation or Tai Chi, some of the slower, quieter, more inward focusing interventions at this stage. I would wait to the middle or later stage to explore those. And in somatics, this is where differentiating between different types of body work or acupuncture really makes a difference depending upon how someone feels about touch and really whether touch played a role in trauma in the experience in someone's life. I also like the use of rituals when working with people who've been traumatized and are in recovery, and developing group rituals either through group psychotherapy or helping people connect to some of the entheogenic rituals that are available worldwide. Integrative treatment for bipolar disorder. This is where you might do some MTHFR testing for genetics, assess for causes of mood lability. Sometimes people are truly misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder. They're extremely vulnerable to the ups and downs of hypoglycemia. Rule out allergies, an inflammatory diet, excess sugar, for example. Bipolar disorder is essentially a disruption of circadian rhythm. This is why lithium orotate can be so beneficial. Light therapy, chrononutrition. These individuals will do well eating their biggest meal midday, lighter meal in the night. And again, help shift people back through a very significant phase delay in their rhythm. They'll do well with protein, vegetables, low glycemic values. And again, core nutrients. And here I've added inositol from 5 to 20 grams a day is used for bipolar disorder. Licorice root, hops, hydrotherapies of all kinds are going to benefit mood. Coffee enemas, and remember, the hydrotherapies that are cold will elevate mood, warm hydrotherapies will calm you down. So think about the state that someone is in and what kind of hydrotherapy will benefit them. People with bipolar will benefit from putting them on their right side and rocking them, particularly if they're moving towards a manic state. So there's a little bit about our protocols, and apply your own creative juices to what you're going to put together for your clients. And in all of my textbooks, I give you more protocols and more details as well. And I've also provided you with a number of those handouts to refer to. Let's now look at testing. Why? Why test? We want to test in context. Our client may want a test. Oftentimes people feel that they want to see it in black and white on paper. They want a lab test to come back to show them that their glucose levels are too high, their HbA1c is too high, or their adrenal stress hormones are too high. They may not want to take our reasoned guess as gospel. They may want to see it. And so testing has lots of psychological value as well as simple laboratory value. It can help people improve to adherence in a plan. Tests are going to confirm what we believe is going on or what we suspect may be happening. Testing can also illuminate nuances in why certain things may be working or not as we proceed through an integrative approach. I'll often define the need for testing also based on the resources of my clients. If you recall, we discussed the idea of gluten testing. Testing for gluten sensitivity may be outside of someone's budget, and so you can test by eliminating gluten for 3 months. That's an empirical test that one conducts, and you save the money. On the other hand, someone may say, I want to see a lab test and I've got the money to pay for it. So resources certainly contribute to whether one is going to test as well. So laboratory testing for mental health nutrition. I think vitamin D test, a serum test, is one of the first tests to conduct with people with depression and pain. Everybody should really have this test once a year. It's low cost and it's easy to supplement vitamin D. Tissue mineral analysis. I can identify are there heavy metals in the body, or they can be contributing to mental illness or learning disorders. I may test for 24-hour diurnal cortisol, an adrenal stress index test, hormones, food sensitivities, digestive panels, not only allergies to foods, but how is the gut functioning. There are also specialized tests, for example, the Walsh protocols, B12 testing for cognitive function, and then APOE genetic testing for vulnerability and risk for the development of late-stage Alzheimer's. Not an expensive test, and this can often give emphasis for making dietary changes and lifestyle changes for the prevention of Alzheimer's in late stage. The 24-hour salivary cortisol test. Cortisol follows circadian rhythm, and you collect saliva at 4 points in the day. And this test can tell you about endogenous depression. We see commonly disruptions in this in depression, PTSD, traumatic brain challenges. So there's lots of value to this test. Now, the downside of this test is you may have one finding on one day, and then if you're rear-ended in a car accident the next, it'll change your cortisol levels. So it is a snapshot into your cortisol levels at one point in time. You can check for inflammatory markers in the blood that co-occur with depression and contribute to depression and heart disease. Homocysteine is one of them. High homocysteine levels pretty much suggests that you've also got an MTHR genetic mutation. If you're going to have C-reactive protein tested, which is a marker for inflammatory process and for potential heart disease, mood disorders, get what's called high sensitivity C-reactive test. And fibrinogen also will be a marker for inflammatory process. There's some new testing called telomere testing. These are the genetic material at the end of each chromosome. Their primary function is to prevent chromosomal fraying. And think of a plastic tip at the end of the shoelace that keeps the shoelace from unraveling. Now, it's normal for telomeres to shorten over time with age, leading to cell death. But oxidative stress and exposures and chronic stress in the body can decrease telomere function. And there is particular testing where you can identify your own telomere function that can inform nutritional and lifestyle changes that you might make. There's a lot of stressors that can contribute to telomere damage. The zinc taste test. We've discussed how low zinc is common in depression, in eating disorders, and ADHD. And this is a very simple test that you can do by taking a teaspoonful of liquid zinc, and you'll find that your experience varies based on what your body needs. If you're deficient in zinc, the liquid will taste like water. If there are adequate levels, it will taste bitter. Where do we get some lab testing? Neurogistics is a lab that tests for urinary neurotransmitter levels. Trace Elements is a lab I use for tissue mineral analysis, also called hair analysis. Diagnostics will test for food allergies, salivary adrenal stress index, digestive markers. There's a relatively new test out on the market called the omega-3 index, which will test your omega-3 levels, both EPA and DHA, by using just a blood spot at home, so it's not invasive. Gluten and food allergy testing carried out by Cyrex Labs is a very sophisticated analysis of sensitivity to gluten and casein. Great Plains Laboratory is another such lab that you can go to for organic acids tests, gluten, casein, vitamin D, amino acid levels. Life Extension has blood tests of all varieties and hormone tests where you can just call up and order the tests without a doctor's prescription. The mediator release test is a test for food and chemical sensitivity. And SpectraCell provides testing for the MTHFR, telomere testing, micronutrient tests, and they provide lots of clinician training through webinars as well. The automated morningness, eveningness questionnaire is a resource I've mentioned, and here is the link to it. And now I'm going to just go over very briefly some of these resources that complement our PowerPoints and modules. This is a wonderful ethics and practice resource that you can download, model guidelines for the use of complementary and alternative therapies in medical practice, databases to understand drug-nutrient interactions, and I've given you 3 databases here called Risk and Nutrition Data. Here are 2 researchers and clinicians for pharmaceutical elimination. Peter Bregan has written a number of books that I refer you to, and this is taken from his Senate testimony, the U.S. House actually on Veterans Affairs testimony about antidepressant-induced suicide and violence risk for military personnel, and the work of Irving Kirsch, and then Harm Reduction Guide to Coming Off Pharmaceuticals, available in English and Spanish. In terms of nutrients, I love the Nutrients of Biotics Research Corporation. Emerson Ecologics is a distributor of a variety of nutrients. Life Extension has a magazine that's very helpful for clients. I leave it in the waiting room. Thorne Metabolic Nutrition, they also have nutrients for your 4-pod friends. Allergy Research Group has some of the best glandulars when we've been talking about the use of glandulars. Nordic Naturals and Carlson Labs, I think, produce the best sources of fish oil. And they also have gummy bears for children and people who don't want to take fish oil capsules. High quality nutrient brands also include Integrative Therapeutics, and Fungi Perfecti is a preeminent source of medicinal mushrooms. Distributors of nutritional supplements where you can develop a wholesale distributorship, Standard Process, Emerson Ecologics, Natural Partners. For herbal medicine, I've given you the A to Z guide to drug-herb vitamin interactions and the link to the American Herbalist Guild in case you want to find a certified and registered herbal therapist, along with the regulatory bodies of national and international practice of herbalism. I think the German E-Commission has done stellar work worldwide for identifying herbs and their applications, indications, and contraindications. Psychedelic medicine, the Psychedelic Harm Reduction Project, and there is a new certificate in psychedelic-assisted therapies and research at the California Institute for Integral Studies. I taught there for a number of years, and their work is marvelous. And this is a new program that's designed to help you work and assist in psychedelic medicine. More research in entheogens and psychedelic medicine. There's a psychedelic psychotherapy forum, and then the MAPS, psychedelic medicine bibliography. Foods and food-related technologies. Bragg's apple cider vinegar is the best there is. And then there's a wonderful food app called Find Real Food app. The Happy Fork, you remember the Happy Fork that helps do a little biofeedback if you're shoveling food in too quickly while you eat. And cooking skills. I find my clients love to learn cooking skills. Cooking Matters. There's even a knife skills video and food scores application. Leonard Nimoy made a wonderful DVD called Micro Warriors, The Power of Probiotics, and here's the website for it. For those of your clients who may be interested in a short version of the information I've shared with you, I've created a video called Beyond Fish Oil, and there's both a 2.5-hour version and a 7-hour version. Kitchen appliances, where to find the best blenders, juicers, and dehydrators. These are what I've found to be the very best quality. And for detoxification, Yerba Prima is your go-to source for skin brushes, bentonite, psyllium husk powder. And then I would search for enema bags and tubes online, and certainly saunas at your local health club. For acupuncture, biofeedback, and cranial electrical stimulation, here again are some references to where to find certified and licensed practitioners. If you're interested in further training, the Bastyr University has a nutrition program at both the undergraduate and graduate level, health coach training programs. The National Association of Nutrition Professionals is an organization of schools who train people in nutrition, such as we've discussed in our integrative medicine modules. My personal favorite is the Nutritional Therapy Practitioner Program. It's a 9-month distance program, so you can do it, learn the basics, and learn some good hands-on techniques as well. Other organizations to pay attention to, the Center for Nutrition Advocacy. They will list where it is legal to practice nutritional therapy and where there are currently legislative initiatives going on in every state. The International Network of Integrative Mental Health, the Weston Price Foundation, is a wonderful organization that supports authentic and traditional nutrition, has a wonderful conference every year. So what are your next steps for practice? We begin with using ourself as our own laboratory. Everything you've learned here in our program, begin practicing on yourself. Learn it from the inside out. Build your competencies. Identify what really makes you feel passionate about this topic and build your competency. Learn more, maybe get more training or get certification beyond what we've done here in this certification. You might even decide to get licensure, or you might build referral network and connect with others in your community. Begin now by adding one method at a time. Don't feel like you have to master everything at once. Just start with one thing that appeals to you and appeals to your client. Collaborate. Think about a group practice. Might you invite someone in to work with you and collaborate with you that's got some skills that we've covered here? Get supervision for your cases. Find someone who can help you bring some of these approaches to your work and use it for supervision. Do some public speaking. Get out and give a talk at the public library, write a pamphlet, give a little book reading, whatever it is, present and submit at conferences. Get your name out there, get yourself known. There's a wonderful niche to be made in integrative medicine for mental health. And of course, write, conduct research, and publish. Develop a niche practice. This is practical implementation. Make sure you get good resources and that you are assured of the quality of those resources. Think about strategies for supporting underserved communities as we do this work. Our work in mental health is work of social justice. Let's do integrative medicine for mental health and social justice as well. And then find some research funding for your implementation and clinical programming. Who to collaborate with? Integrative practitioners, naturopaths. They can prescribe and they can serve as primary care clinicians, herbalists, acupuncturists, functional medicine clinicians, nutritional therapists, body workers, yoga teachers, body-oriented psychotherapists, and health coaches. And let's not forget the role of dog therapy in mental health. In summary, today we've put together protocol examples. We've put it all together. We see how it all works. We've talked about developing a niche practice, collaboration opportunities, what your next steps in training might be, how to assure that you're getting good resources and good quality, and educating your clients about good quality nutrients and herbs and foods. We've talked a little bit about the importance of outreach for underserved communities and obtaining research funding as a way to support your clinical work. I've so enjoyed our time together. Good luck, go forth, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.